We're now going to have a look at a very common and a very important data structure in PHP, and that is arrays. And arrays are used to hold more than one value in a variable. So think of something like a collection or a list of names, list of numbers, something like that. You can store that entire list, that entire collection, all in one variable. Whereas up to now, we've just been storing one value in a variable, like one number or just one string of text. But now we can store multiple numbers or multiple strings of text because we're going to use arrays. So let's go and create a new folder for this, and this will be number 6, and this will be arrays, and then inside of there we'll create a new PHP file, arrays.php. Okay, so we know how to start a PHP file now. Opening PHP tag. I've just dropped a little comment in there just to remind us what arrays are and what they do. So here what we'll do is we'll create a new variable, so colors equals, and then it's kind of giving me a hint here, and I might as well take that. So like I say, we've stored 3 values in here now, so you'll notice how we did this. We opened with an opening square bracket. That's how you create an array. We closed it with a square bracket, and then each item in there is a string, and each item is separated by a comma. That is how you create an array. So say for example, if we wanted to do numbers, and in fact you might as well have a go at this yourself because you've seen how I do it with strings. Why don't you create a variable called numbers which will hold an array of numbers, and just choose whatever numbers you like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pause me and give that a go if you think you can do this. Okay, so you saw what I did there with colors. So with numbers, we're going to use our opening square brackets, and again we separate each one with a comma. So just like I'm being hinted here, we now have an array containing the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this kind of array where you define it with just a value, we haven't given these keys for each position. This is an indexed array, and each item can be accessed using its index. In PHP and in most programming languages, your arrays are 0 indexed, i.e. the very first item will be item 0, then item 1, then item 2. And so if we want to get at item 0, i.e. the color red, this is how we will do that. We'll say echo colors followed by square brackets, followed by the actual index which we are trying to get at. So in this case, index 0 should be red. Okay, and so if I go and run this, so I'm going to cd into number 6 arrays, and then I'm going to do php arrays.php, we should see the color red being echoed. And indeed that is what we see. So if you wanted to echo the color blue, what would you do here? Pause me and have a go. So we've said that 0 is red, we've said that 1 is green. To get at blue, we are looking for number 2, and as you can see, we now print out blue. Okay, and to inspect any type of data structure, again in PHP we can use our trusty var dump, and so this will tell you everything that you need to know, or as much as you need to know about that particular variable. So in this case we should see that the variable contains an array, and the values in that array are 1 to 5. Let's go and check this out. Okay, so it's telling us that this is an array with 5 items. So the parentheses of the 5, that's telling us the size of the array, and then it actually tells you what each index contains. So you can see inside the square brackets, this is for each index in that array. So again starts at 0, and it's telling us that the item at index 0 is an integer with a value of 1. The item at index 1 is an integer with a value of 2. And so you get the picture there. And so if you ever want to know what an array contains, or you want to do a quick sanity check while you're working on your code, then var dump is your friend. Okay, so now let's have a look at a couple of things that you can do with arrays. And so we're going to look at looping in the next one, but we'll have a short introduction to it here. So if you wanted to loop over colors and do something with each item in there, or loop over numbers and do something with each item in there, you can use something called foreach. And so here we can say for each numbers, so it's going to loop over numbers as number, and that's the important part, because inside of the curly brackets now you can reference the number which it is at in the loop. So if we start looping over this, first it will loop over number 1, and then 2, and then 3, and so that is what this individual number is referring to. And so here we can echo the number, and we'll also put our new line on there as well. So what this should do is it should loop over all the numbers, and for each one just echo it out on its own line. Let's go and test that. Okay, and so as you can see we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you think of something like, let's have an example, an e-commerce site where you've got a list of items on a page, then arrays and loops will be how you actually render that. Okay, one last thing we can check. You can actually count numbers as well. So I'm just going to comment out this for each loop, and if you didn't fully understand that, don't worry, the next lesson is all about loops and different types of loops. So there'll be plenty of practice and plenty of revision on all of this stuff all throughout the book. We don't just cover something once, you cover it, and then as we introduce new things you reuse them again. Okay, so here let's echo out a count. So we're going to use a function again. We're going to come onto functions and we're going to write our own functions later. But basically with functions you can pass some information to them. You don't always need to pass information to them, but often you do. Pass them some information and they will do something with that information. In this case, what it's going to do is it is going to see, it's going to count how many items are in this, and it's going to return to us a number. Okay, so here we can see with our own eyes that we have 3 items in there. So when we go and run this, I'm expecting to see a value of 3, and indeed we do see a value of 3. Okay, so there we only looked at one type of array, which was an indexed array, but in the book we also look at associative arrays, and in associative arrays you can actually give keys to each item. So for example this one here, instead of it just being an array of values like Alice 30, alice@example.com, which might not mean anything, you can give those items keys, and then instead of looking up the items using indexes, using numbers, you can look them up using those keys. But again, we'll cover that in detail in the book. Okay, so that was arrays. Again, very important, very much well used structure in PHP and in other languages, and is used for when you're working with like a large set. Or say for example you want to read a file and you want to read each line of a file, you can read that all into an array and then loop over that array and do things with the data.